Writers, you have chosen more focused topics of your writing. You have done extensive research. You have written a lot of notes, and you have drafted based on those notes and based on the organization you've done of those notes. You've reached a very critical part of the writing process, a time to think about how can your thoughts and ideas grow even further. Today I want to teach you that writers need to check to see if they have the structures and formats that will let their information and ideas grow even more. As always, to see possibilities for ways you can structure your writing, you can turn to published authors. So last night, since I knew that you were working on information pieces, I went and looked at several different information writings by published authors, so nonfiction text, to see if I could find different examples of structures that have helped information writing grow ideas. So I'm going to show you some of those examples. First one was Junior Scholastic magazine that you've read before, and the very back page, okay, this was an article about a mighty wave, ? And this one used a structure of questions, okay, you can kind of see there, questions about the topic, so almost the format of a quiz, okay, using a quiz in their writing so that after students read this portion, then they were able to go ahead and answer those quiz questions. So I'm going to make it a little bit closer for you here. Okay, and you can kind of see who do you think is speaking in the cartoon? What symbol does the cartoon use for the people who will be voting in the midterm elections? So it gives a quiz format. So that's one way to structure information writing to make ideas grow. Another example is from National Geographic. Okay, National Geographic Kids. This is a chapter book on hero dogs, the true stories of amazing animal heroes. And the technique that this one uses is throughout the book on different pages, it gives a did you know fact. Did you know the part of a dog's brain devoted to scent is about 1/8 of its entire brain? So in addition to the information that it also gives a did you know fact. Okay, another example from another chapter. Here's a did you know. Sorry, gotta get it right. To keep cool, hippos spend the day in rivers or ponds. At night they graze on land. They can eat up to 150 pounds of grass in a single night. So this nonfiction text used little blurbs of did you know facts to keep their reader interested and to keep their information flowing. One final example I want to show you is from a Who Is book. Okay, this is a book about who is Jane Goodall. And the technique that they used is highlighting specific topics or items that went with what they were talking about. So, for example, it says, are chimpanzees monkeys? Okay, and I could tell that this part was different than the rest of the book because you can see it has this solid line border all the way around it. And if you look closely, all of the letters are capital. But if I turn to chapter 1, that's not the case, right? You can see that it's written in normal print there. So they devoted whole pages to adding blurbs that fit with the topic or their person in this case. Okay. So right now, let's see if we can find a structure that will help one section that we've worked on, the Erie Canal. I've showed this to you several times. And see if we can find a way to help this grow and develop. So I'm going to show you what we've written so far. And hopefully this will get somewhat close enough for you to see. Okay. So here's what we've written so far on the Erie Canal. Listen as I read. The Erie Canal connected the Atlantic Ocean to Lake Erie. Before the Erie Canal was built, boats could travel from New York City in the south to Albany in the north using the Hudson River. The Erie Canal added a long branch to the Hudson River going west, which meant that people could travel over 350 miles from Buffalo to Albany on the canal. Now boats could travel from New York City to other big cities like Syracuse and to Buffalo in the west. Now boats could travel clear across New York and up and down New York. For passengers, it could cost $3.50 to travel from Schenectady to Utica. That was a lot of money in 1836. So let's think about whether we could put what we have written so far into a quiz format. So a quiz format like what was used in our junior scholastic. That would leave room for this section to grow. So let's think about possible quiz questions. Would need to leave room for us to grow more interesting details and ideas. So we got to think about that as well. So first we're going to go with quiz questions. Okay, possible quiz questions. So for example, maybe I want one that says, how does the Erie Canal work? Okay. This question definitely would give room for this passage to grow because we didn't hear a lot about the specifics of how the Erie Canal would work. Another question could be, how did the Erie Canal help settlers? So again, an option to help this section grow because we can add more, we can grow onto it about specifically the settlers. And one final one, what other events in westward expansion are similar to the Erie Canal? Okay, remember the Erie Canal was a way to move west, transportation, a way to move west. So what other events also allowed people to move west? We could connect things like the Transcontinental Railroad or using the Oregon Trail. Okay, so this would be a way that you could use a quiz to grow your research. Okay. Maybe you don't want to use a quiz. Maybe instead you would rather use a format that starts off with, you might think, but actually. Okay, so let's think about that one. So let's go to the bottom of our board here. Okay, you might think, but actually. So those are the phrase that I'm using, okay? You might think, but actually, I'm going to draw a line here so you know that this is a different thought, okay? And here's a way that you might structure this. So we might say something like, you might think that westward expansion was mostly about people moving west. But actually, it was also about transportation moving west. So did you see how I used that phrase? So we might write something that says, you might think that westward expansion was about people moving west, but actually, and I know I'm going to run out of room in just a second for you to see, but actually, it was also about, whoops, I gotta spell correctly here. It was also about transportation moving west. Okay, and then you might want to include, okay, well, what types of transportation are you talking about, right? So then you could also add a sentence that said, the Erie Canal and the I'm going to abbreviate, Transcontinental Railroad, RR, were each very big parts of westward expansion. Okay, so here's two formats, okay, that you can think about using to grow your writing. So the first one we did was quiz questions, okay? Could you start a section with quiz questions? The second one we looked at was a phrase, you might think, ... but actually. So we said, you might think that westward expansion was about people moving west, but actually, it was also about transportation moving west. Okay, so you could maybe even see a new format working even better than your current one in the organization that you did last week, and that's okay. You might want to change your structure of your report. There's nothing wrong with that. So writers, we've looked at different mentor texts, remember, the ones that I showed you today, okay, to see how formats and structures help ideas to grow in information writing. So today we're going to do that same work. This time we are looking at information books or articles or pictures, whatever you choose, and finding ways to set up or structure our writing that are going to interest our reader. So today you have 3 steps that I want you to do. 1, you're going to look back over the work that you've already done, even the draft that you did on Friday. 2, you're going to pick one of the structures we talked about today or a new one you came up with to add to your writing and make the ideas grow. Remember, the ones that we came up with were the quiz questions and you might think but actually. You're going to pick one of those structures and apply it to your writing. And then 3, you're going to add that information in. So add the questions, add the you might think phrases. Okay? Off you go.